About your wedding and what you want to do with it. Is it going to be very private, or are we all invited?
It's not going to be private, I don't think. I want a really big wedding. I want a long white dress. I want a tradition.
Tradition.
Brooke Shields' full name is Krista Brooke Camille Shields. She was born on May 31st, 1965, in New York City, United States. Her mother, Teri Shields, was known for having a powerful personality and strong ambitions. She had always dreamed of fame, influence, and success, but had never fully achieved those dreams herself. When Brooke was born, Teri believed that her daughter might open the door to the world she had always wanted to enter. From a very young age, Brooke possessed striking features that captured attention immediately. Her large, expressive eyes, delicate facial structure, and natural presence made her stand out in front of a camera even as an infant. Because of this, Brooke's career began incredibly early. When she was only 11 months old, her mother signed her with the Ford Modeling Agency, one of the most well-known modeling agencies in the world. At an age when most babies are just learning to walk, Brooke was already appearing in print advertisements and catalog photos. She had no understanding of the decisions being made about her life, but the foundation of a career had already been built around her image. Throughout the early 1970s, Brooke continued working regularly in advertising and modeling. By the time she was a young child, photographers and brands were already recognizing her potential. Her mother remained closely involved in every step of her career, managing opportunities and guiding the direction of her work. Then, in 1978, when Brooke was 12 years old, she was cast in a film that would bring her international attention. The film was titled Pretty Baby, directed by Louis Malle. The story was set in a New Orleans brothel at the beginning of the 20th century and focused on the young girl named Violet growing up in that unusual environment. Because of the film's themes and certain scenes, the movie quickly became controversial. Some critics praised its artistic style and storytelling, while others questioned whether a child should have been placed in such a role. Despite the debate, the film was released widely in theaters and reviewed in major publications. For Brooke, the result was immediate fame. At just 12 years old, she became one of the most talked-about young figures in the entertainment industry. After the release of Pretty Baby, Brooke Shields' fame continued to grow rapidly. She appeared on the covers of major magazines and became one of the most recognizable young faces in media. Her mother publicly defended the choices made in Brooke's career and often described them as opportunities that would build a serious future in the industry. Then, in 1980, when Brooke was about 15 years old, she appeared in one of the most famous and controversial advertisements in fashion history. The advertisement was for the brand Calvin Klein. Sitting in a pair of jeans and looking directly into the camera, Brooke delivered a line that immediately captured national attention. "You want to know what comes between me and my Calvins? Nothing." The commercial sparked widespread debate across the United States. Some people believed it was bold and creative advertising, while others criticized it for presenting a 15-year-old girl in a suggestive way. Several television stations chose to stop airing the ad. However, the controversy had the opposite effect of what critics expected. The debate caused millions of people to watch the advertisement, and Calvin Klein's sales increased dramatically. Brooke Shields quickly became a household name across the country. That same year, 1980, Brooke also starred in another film that would become widely known, The Blue Lagoon. In the movie, she played a young girl who becomes stranded on a tropical island with a boy, and the two characters grow up together in isolation from the rest of the world. When filming began, Brooke was about 14 years old. The movie became a major box office success and further increased her global fame. By the time she reached her mid-teenage years, Brooke Shields had already appeared in several major films, countless magazine covers, and high-profile advertising campaigns. She had become one of the most recognizable young celebrities in the world, and her image had helped generate millions of dollars in the entertainment and fashion industries. Yet despite all this success, many of the decisions shaping her life had been made by others. She was still a teenager growing up inside an industry that treated beauty, fame, and attention as powerful business assets. In 1983, when Brooke Shields was 18 years old, she made a decision that surprised many people in the entertainment industry. At a time when her fame was already established and her career in Hollywood seemed guaranteed, she chose to step away from the center of the spotlight and focus on education. Brooke enrolled at Princeton University, one of the most prestigious universities in the United States. For her, this decision was not simply about earning a degree. It was about experiencing life outside the powerful system of fame that had surrounded her since infancy.
For the first time in her life, she wanted to exist in an environment where she could be recognized for her thoughts and abilities rather than for her appearance or celebrity status. However, leaving Hollywood did not mean escaping attention. When Brooke arrived at Princeton, photographers and journalists quickly followed. Paparazzi waited near the campus, hoping to capture images of one of the world's most famous young women living an ordinary student life. Even her dormitory attracted curiosity from reporters and curious observers. Despite the constant attention, Brooke tried to live as normally as possible. She attended classes regularly, completed assignments, participated in discussions, and built friendships with classmates who saw her more than just a celebrity. According to many of the people who studied with her, Brooke worked extremely hard to prove that she belonged there academically. At Princeton, Brooke chose to study Romance languages, focusing mainly on French literature. Her academic work required discipline and dedication, something that many people outside the university had not expected from someone who had grown up in the world of modeling and film. She spent years studying, reading, and writing like any other student. Eventually, in 1987, when she was 22 years old, Brooke Shields graduated from Princeton University with her degree. This achievement became an important personal milestone for her. It demonstrated that she was not defined only by the image the media had created around her. She had proven that she possessed intellectual curiosity and determination beyond the expectations placed on her during childhood. While her time at Princeton helped her gain independence and confidence, it also created a contrast that would become more visible when she returned to the entertainment industry. After graduating in 1987, Brooke resumed acting in public appearances. However, the industry she returned to had not changed much during the year she had spent studying. Many producers, directors, and media outlets still viewed her primarily through the same lens that had defined her teenage fame, her appearance, and her earlier controversial roles. Instead of focusing on the direction she
Wanted to take her career, many projects offered to her were built mainly around her celebrity status. During the late 1980s and early 1990s, Brooke continued working in films and television, but the path was not always easy. Like many former child stars, she faced the challenge of redefining herself as an adult performer. Some projects succeeded, while others failed to gain attention or strong reviews. Critics who had followed her career since her teenage years often compared her new roles with the image of the young star they remembered. This created pressure that made it difficult to fully reinvent her professional identity. Throughout these years, one presence remained constant in Brooke's life: her mother, Teri Shields. Their relationship was deeply complicated. On one hand, Teri had been the person who introduced Brooke to the entertainment world and helped build the career that made her famous. On the other hand, their lives had become so intertwined that separating personal identity from professional control was extremely difficult. Teri was not only Brooke's mother, but also the central manager of her career for many years. The boundary between parenting and managing often became unclear. Brooke later described their relationship as a mixture of deep love, loyalty, and emotional complexity. Another challenge within their relationship involved Teri's struggles with alcohol addiction, which created difficult situations both privately and publicly. Over time, these experiences contributed to Brooke's growing awareness that her childhood had been shaped by forces she had not fully understood when she was young. The realization did not come all at once. It developed gradually over years of reflection, maturity, and later through therapy and writing. By the early 1990s, Brooke Shields had reached a stage in life where she was beginning to examine her past more carefully. She had experienced global fame, academic achievement, and the pressures of returning to an industry that still saw her through the lens of her earlier image. The question she increasingly faced was not simply how to continue her career, but how to define who she truly was outside the expectations created by others. By the mid-1990s, Brooke Shields had already spent nearly 3 decades in the public eye. She had experienced fame as a child, controversy as a teenager, and the challenge of rebuilding her identity as an adult actress. Then, in 1996, when Brooke was 31 years old, an unexpected opportunity helped change the direction of her career. She appeared as a guest star on the popular American television sitcom Friends. In the episode, she played a character named Susie Moss, a former classmate of Chandler Bing, who returns with a humorous plan for revenge after a childhood embarrassment. The role allowed Brooke to display a side of her personality that many audiences had never seen before. Instead of dramatic intensity or serious roles, she showed strong comedic timing and confidence in a lighthearted performance. The audience reaction was immediate and enthusiastic. Viewers were surprised to discover that Brooke Shields had a natural talent for comedy. This successful appearance on Friends opened the door to a major opportunity. Later in 1996, Brooke became the lead actress in a new television sitcom titled Suddenly Susan. At 31 years old, she stepped into the role of Susan Keene, a magazine writer living in San Francisco, who decides to rebuild her life after ending an engagement. The show focused on her professional challenges, friendships, and personal growth, presented through humor and everyday situations. Suddenly Susan aired on the NBC television network and quickly gained a loyal audience. The series ran for 4 seasons, from 1996 to 2000, giving Brooke one of the most stable and consistent acting roles of her career. Working on a television series was very different from the unpredictable film project she had experienced earlier in life. For the first time, Brooke had the opportunity to develop a character over multiple years and collaborate closely with the same creative team and cast members. Although critics sometimes gave mixed reviews to the show, the audience response remained strong, and Brooke's performance was widely appreciated. Colleagues who worked with her during this time often described her as disciplined, supportive, and deeply committed to making the comedy work. She was no longer simply relying on her fame. She was actively building a new phase of her career based on her own skills. During the same period that Suddenly Susan was airing, Brooke's personal life was also attracting attention from the media. In April 1997, when she was 31 years old, she married Andre Agassi, one of the most famous professional tennis players in the world. Their wedding became a major celebrity event, covered by newspapers and television networks around the globe. To the public, the relationship seemed like the perfect pairing of 2 internationally known stars. Both Brooke and Andre had grown up under intense public attention, and many people believed they would understand each other's lives better than anyone else. However, the reality of their marriage was more complicated than the glamorous image presented in the media. Years later, Andre Agassi revealed in his own memoir that he had been struggling with serious personal challenges during that time, including addiction to crystal methamphetamine. He also admitted that he sometimes felt insecure about the level of fame Brooke had achieved, which at certain points was even greater than his own. These pressures created tension within their relationship. What the public saw as a glamorous celebrity marriage was behind the scenes a partnership facing significant emotional difficulties. After 2 years of marriage, Brooke Shields and Andre Agassi separated and officially divorced in 1999, when Brooke was 34 years old. The end of the marriage became widely discussed in the media, especially after Agassi later shared personal details about the relationship in his autobiography. For Brooke, the experience was another moment in which parts of her private life became public discussion without her direct control. Instead of responding publicly to every claim or detail, she largely chose to remain quiet about the situation. Over time, she had learned that silence could sometimes protect her from the constant cycle of public speculation. Despite the personal challenges she faced during those years, Brooke continued focusing on her work and rebuilding her life. The experience of the marriage and divorce also became part of a larger process of self-reflection. After spending much of her childhood and early adulthood living according to expectations created by others,
she was gradually beginning to understand what kind of life she wanted to build for herself. In 2021, when Brooke Shields was 55 years old, she experienced one of the most frightening physical challenges of her life. For many years, she had maintained an active lifestyle and followed a regular fitness routine. Exercise had become an important part of her daily life. However, in February 2021, during a workout at a gym in New York City, an accident suddenly changed everything. Brooke was performing an exercise known as a Romanian deadlift, which involves lifting a weighted barbell while maintaining balance and control. She had performed this movement many times before, but during this particular session, she lost her balance and fell. As she hit the ground, her femur, the largest and strongest bone in the human body, fractured completely. A broken femur is considered one of the most serious injuries a person can experience without it being immediately life-threatening. The pain was intense, and emergency medical help was required immediately. Brooke was rushed to the hospital, where doctors performed surgery the same day. The procedure required inserting a metal rod inside the femur, a medical technique known as intramedullary nailing, to stabilize the bone and allow it to heal. Although the surgery itself was successful, the recovery process was extremely demanding. In the weeks that followed, Brooke had to undergo additional medical procedures and begin a long period of physical rehabilitation. Walking again required patience, therapy, and determination. The recovery was not only physically painful, but also emotionally challenging. For most of her life, Brooke's body had been the center of her career, whether through modeling, acting, or public attention. Now, she was forced to face a situation where her body had suddenly become fragile and uncertain. For months, she worked closely with physical therapists, gradually rebuilding strength and learning to trust her body again. The experience changed the way she thought about physical health and resilience. Instead of focusing on appearance or public image, the recovery process taught her to appreciate the simple ability to move, walk, and regain independence. The injury became a turning point that reminded her how quickly life can change and how important it is to listen to the body, rather than constantly pushing it to perform. Just when life seemed to be returning to normal, another unexpected health emergency occurred. In 2023, when Brooke was 58 years old, she experienced a sudden grand mal seizure. The incident happened unexpectedly while she was at a restaurant. People around her were shocked as she suddenly lost consciousness and began seizing. She was quickly transported to the hospital, where doctors worked to understand what had caused the episode. Brooke herself had no memory of the seizure and later woke up in the intensive care unit feeling confused and frightened. After careful medical examination, doctors discovered that the seizure had been caused by a condition called hyponatremia, which occurs when the level of sodium in the blood becomes dangerously low. In Brooke's case, the imbalance had been triggered by drinking excessive amounts of water while preparing for a medical procedure. Although drinking water is normally healthy, consuming too much in a short period of time can disrupt the body's chemical balance and affect brain function. When sodium levels fall too low, the brain can swell, leading to seizures or other severe neurological symptoms. The experience was deeply unsettling, but Brooke eventually recovered. Reflecting on both the femur fracture and the seizure, she began speaking openly about how these health crises changed her perspective on life. For decades, her body had been treated as something to display, manage, and maintain for the public eye. Now she saw it differently, as a complex system that required care, patience, and respect. The injuries and medical scares reminded her that strength does not come from perfection, but from the ability to recover and move forward after difficult moments.